For TigerDetails.com, Jerit Roser here with Mitchell Forde of PowerMizzou, the rival site up at Missouri, and getting ready for this Tigers versus Tigers matchup this weekend that we were just talking about before starting recording. Was set for Baton Rouge. We're monitoring Tropical Storm Delta, and it may end up in Columbia, but that'll be something that we figure out as the week goes along. But Mitchell, man, appreciate you taking a couple minutes and chatting about this matchup. How are things going up y'all's way?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Things have been good. It's been a different season, but at least there's football. There was a time not too long ago and didn't know that we'd be saying that.
Yeah, when we were chatting with Coach Ogeron and some of the sports information people at LSU on Monday and starting to ask about what the dynamic might be with this storm, I just couldn't help but think how never-endingly bizarre this whole fall has been. But I think we all end up in that same boat of we're happy that we're seeing some progress. We're happy that there is ball on Saturday basically, and so that's something to look forward to regardless of who gets to be in person or where it's located, I guess.
Yeah. It's just been a crazy year overall, but yeah. I do think there's still a possibility this game could be moved to Columbia. I don't think a decision will come till Wednesday at the earliest, possibly Thursday. I haven't heard about any other, neutral side options. I think they'll just keep monitoring the storm, and if it's looking like travel will be difficult or the game will be unsafe, then it would be moved up to Columbia.
Sure. And football-wise, obviously, folks down in Baton Rouge very disappointed about the start against Mississippi State, dropping Mike Leach's opener in Baton Rouge. They go up to Nashville and bounce back against Vanderbilt this past week. Missouri ends up with a very tough draw to start the year, and their two games thus far have been against ranked opponents. Alabama, everybody knows, perennial power year in, year out, and Tennessee, kind of back on the upswing in recent years and ranked in the top 15 now. Through those first two games, what have been some of your takeaways of who this Missouri team is, how to, I guess, what perspective to take on those first two losses and what positives maybe to take moving forward into the rest of the way?
Yeah, well, pretty much everyone, I think, at least everyone who's kind of grounded in reality thought that 0-2 was likely to start this season, and really 0-3. Obviously, when the SEC, changed around the schedule, Missouri got a tough draw, getting Alabama and LSU added from the West and getting those two teams within the first 3 weeks, and then going to the road at Tennessee as well. Mizzou hung in there probably better than a lot of people would have expected against Alabama, and then didn't hang in as well as most people would have expected against Tennessee. So it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. Started the year with Sean Robinson at quarterback, with Connor Bazelak rotating in a little bit. Robinson's a TCU transfer, Bazelak's a redshirt freshman, and then this past game Robinson started again, but Bazelak took over and looked better and played the last 3 quarters. We talked to Eli Drinkwitz later today on Tuesday, and we'll see if he is willing to name a starter. I would be surprised if Bazelak doesn't start against LSU. It's possible Robinson plays a series or two, but I doubt it. I think kind of they're giving the keys to Bazelak at this point. The offense has just been inconsistent. They've moved the ball okay, but and I think we expected some struggles. I mean, they have a new starting quarterback replacing 3 starters on the offensive line, 2 starters at receiver. So that's not shocking. What's been a little more surprising, especially against Tennessee, was the defense, particularly the front 6, just really kind of got pushed around by that Tennessee offensive line, which is very good. But the defense was expected to be the strength of Missouri's team. They've got Kobe Whiteside at nose tackle. He's a senior and a potential all-SEC guy. Nick Bolton, the potential first-round draft pick at linebacker. And Tennessee pretty much just ran all over them. So that will need to get better, because I think, moving forward, Missouri needs to win games that are more like, 24-20 or 2017 than they can afford to, let the opponent score 35 and 38 points.
That was something I was interested in coming out of that Tennessee game, because the Vols did have a ton of success running the football, and that going into this past week at Vandy was a huge focus for LSU to get back to running the ball more, where is kind of bizarre to hear in Baton Rouge, an LSU coach saying that they need to run the ball more, because historically that's all they did. And then
right,
obviously last year had so much success and felt like they didn't do it enough in that loss to Mississippi State. So I'm interested to see that matchup if LSU can continue the success that they had against Vandy in some respects. Obviously, much different opponents, but that was a focal point for them that they felt good about coming out of that one. And Missouri seems like that's an area that they're really trying to shake back and correct some errors coming out of the Tennessee matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Missouri, it's interesting. They started off last season with a really bad game on the ground and much worse actually against Wyoming. Wyoming ran all over them, they lost. And then the run defense was like really good the rest of the season. This might be a little bit different where that game against Wyoming, it was, first game, a lot of missed assignments, a lot of missed tackles. This to me looked kind of like, a really good Tennessee offensive line, just kind of, pushing the defensive line 1 or 2 yards off the ball on every play. So we'll see if that's correctable. Certainly I wouldn't, I'm sure it could be a little bit better than this Tennessee game, but I came out of Saturday more concerned than I have been, about the Missouri defense than I have been probably, since the 2018 season.
And on the other side, I did want to ask you more about the quarterback situation too. I know there was, some positivity coming out of Bazelak's performance this past weekend, and you said that's kind of the anticipation is he would be the starter heading into this LSU game. What did you see from him that you liked? You mentioned he's a guy that's in the program a couple years now, and shook back from that injury, and what were the positives that you took away? What's kind of the overall, I guess, scouting report to some degree of what you've seen from him thus far this season?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The biggest thing, for me was just the offense as a whole looked a lot better with him in. And I kind of thought the plays were being called differently. And part of that might be because they got behind 14-0 and had to open it up a little bit more. But, I went back and looked, and Sean Robinson's average depth of target this season is like 3.6 yards, and Connor Bazelak's is 11.8. So basically the big thing is he's throwing the ball downfield. He's looked good doing it. He's got a good arm. He's been pretty accurate. He's been very poised in the pocket, which is good because, Missouri's offensive line, while it hasn't been as bad as really, honestly, I thought it's still not great. It's, he's going to have guys getting after him from time to time. I think the biggest thing is, with Sean Robinson, the expectation was that he could really kind of use his legs to escape pressure and, as a runner in the running game. And he really has not been effective in doing that. He took some bad sacks against Alabama where he held on to the ball too long. And I don't think he has a rush for more than about 3 or 4 yards this season. And I think without him being able to do that, Connor Bazelak was always kind of the better passer. And so if you're not getting a quarterback run game, being able to kind of spread the defense out vertically opens up things for Missouri's tailbacks, which are probably the strength of the offense, not probably, they are. So I think that's been the biggest thing, just kind of his ability to throw downfield. He's looked poised. He's made some, he's made some good decisions. He had one bad throw against Tennessee, but, like you said, redshirt freshman has only played, I think, about 3 games now. So yeah, well, I mentioned, expecting him to start. That's, just kind of my personal expectation. We'll maybe learn more today when Eli Drinkwitz speaks with the media, but he's just looked like the better quarterback to me so far.
We may have hit on some of it with, I guess, looking at those, at the defense and at the quarterback, and you mentioned the strength of the running backs. But going into this matchup, what are some areas that you look at as places where Missouri can or needs to have success if they're going to have some success in this matchup overall versus some areas of top concern that as you look at what you've seen from Missouri and look at a little bit more of what challenges LSU poses or some of kind of the top of the priority list of what could go wrong?
Yeah, I think for Missouri's offense, the biggest thing it needs to do is get Larry Roundtree and the running backs going early. Larry Roundtree's a senior. He's been a 1,200-yard rusher in the SEC. He's looked really pretty good these first 2 games, but the team's gotten behind, and so it's been hard to kind of establish that running game. They need to try to get him going early. He's the type of runner that he just gets better. The more he he carries it. He kind of wears the defense down. So getting that inside running game going with him, and then I think being able to take some shots down the field will be important. Obviously, LSU was susceptible to that, albeit without Derek Stingley in the first week. So if you can get Roundtree going and then stretch the field with Bazelak's arm, maybe off of play action and connect on a few of those, that'll be important. I think I just don't think Missouri's offense is quite at the point yet where you can realistically expect them to sustain 5 or 6 different double-digit play drives. So getting some of those big shots would certainly be important. On the defensive end, I'll be curious to see how Missouri's corners match up against LSU's wide receivers. Certainly a position that LSU's never lacked talent at. And Missouri's got, Jarvis Ware is a junior, but he missed this past game, and I'm not sure if he'll be available against LSU. And if he's not, they'll have a true freshman and a redshirt freshman starting at corner, who have looked okay, but that certainly would be a tall task to guard some of these receivers, especially if Miles Brennan is throwing the ball well.
I wanted to ask you, I guess somewhat just personally wanted to hear how he's doing. Adam Sparks, a youngster from Baton Rouge that I know him, his brother, his parents, just the family overall. How's he been doing? I know this is one that either way, wherever it's located, but certainly if it ends up staying in Baton Rouge would be one that'd be fun for him. But obviously a tall task against Terrace Marshall and some of these receivers. What's kind of the early season look for young Sparks?
Yeah, he's kind of settled into a nickel corner role, coming in as in 5 or 6 DB packages. He actually was a little surprised he got beat out for, the starting spot opposite Jarvis Ware by a true freshman. But I really do actually think the nickel corner role suits him better. He's a good tackler, probably the best tackler among Missouri's corners. And he's just he's just a small guy. So he kind of gets bodied from time to time if you get him out on the edge and back shoulders and jump balls and stuff like that. But, he's always fun to talk to. He's a kind of a vocal leader of the defense, and a fun interview as well.
Yeah, no doubt. always fun with those guys. Mitchell, what else do you guys have going on up at PowerMizzou this week? Anything that you want to plug that you guys are particularly excited about, or just kind of keep an eye on as LSU fans are looking for some more Missouri information these next few days?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Drinkwitz will have his press conference Tuesday at noon, and we'll have a lot of coverage from that, especially quarterback related coverage. So if you're wondering who's going to start at quarterback, keep an eye on that. And then we're actually at PowerMizzou doing some more video stuff this year, just because it's hard to get, a lot of unique written work just with the Zoom setup. So myself and Gabe Diarman, our publisher, are going to do a live show on Wednesday night at 7:30 Central Time. It usually goes about an hour, where we take questions. So if you go to the PowerMizzou YouTube page, this is free for non-subscribers. LSU fans, if you want questions answered about Missouri, we'll happily answer them if you comment them on the YouTube video. So that would be an easy way to just get your questions answered directly, for sure.
Excellent. Yeah, that'll work out perfectly for LSU fans. Coach Ogeron has his weekly radio show on Wednesday nights, and they can transition straight from O to you guys and just kind of cover all their bases.
Yeah, I'll have to work on my voice to follow up Coach O.
Good deal. Mitchell, appreciate you again, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Again, he's Mitchell Forde from PowerMizzou, the Missouri site on the Rivals Network, and for TigerDetails.com, Jerit Roser. Thanks.